So anyway, Faye, Masam Faye has been with us for a while here. Her Dharma name is Masam Churni, and she's going to be presenting. And Faye Masam has been very diligent here, just attending the sessions and sharing and being a very kind support and offering her presence. And I've never uh, felt better about a practitioner. Like she gives these explanations of self liberation, and she talks about the view, and she has these really deep Dharma roots. So I think it's an absolute privilege to get to hear her presentation today. And since Yeshi's already recording, I guess Masam, you have to start now. Okay.
Hey, I guess it's time. Thank you. And thank you for introducing Thich Nhat Hanh a little bit. That helps. I have connection with him since around 2005, so that's like 20 years when I first started reading his books and watching his YouTube videos. And eventually I was able to attend two of his retreats when he was still alive and giving retreats. And also I've connected with several of the sanghas that are inspired by his teachings. And I think what attracts me the most is his teaching on what he calls interbeing, that's interconnectedness, and what we call oneness, right? That's what it is. And also just by the quality of his presence, you could tell that he was there because he wanted to share what had given him the most insight, and he knew that people needed this, and that was what he wanted to share. So there are lots of different ways that you can access the details of his life. There are websites from the monasteries and groups that he founded, and all kinds of articles online, especially that came out after his death in 2022. So I will try to outline a few of the events of his life. But what I really want to share with our sangha here is how his teaching, how it connects to our understanding in Dzogchen. And so what you'll notice in some of those articles about him is that they call him the father of mindfulness. But what I realize is that this is not like the mindfulness on the level of our thinking mind, like the mindfulness that where I talk to myself about what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. It's it's easy to understand it as that, and I have to say that for many years that was all I was able to absorb of his teaching. It seemed like it would be adopting a different way of thinking and also performing certain actions in a certain way, body, speech, and mind. But actually, his teaching is so much deeper than that. One thing that he would often say is mindfulness is just the awareness of what's going on in us and around us in the present moment. And he would say what we've often heard here in our sangha: nowhere to go, nothing to do. And um, he offered us the practice of deeply experiencing the phrase, I have arrived, I am home. And he gave, whole Dharma talks about what he called the practices of non-practice. But many of us, like me, did not get that. So, however, I think many of his students did um, deeply understand that. Um, I referenced in my sources a Dharma talk by one of his students who was an ordained monk since 1993 and practiced with Thich Nhat Hanh for a long time. And I'll just quote something that he said in this. The student said in this Dharma talk. He said um, about mindfulness, and he said this is right mindfulness. Right mindfulness, if we practice, is endless, no boundaries. The more we practice, the more we discover. And then this brother, this student of Thich Nhat Hanh says, "Oh my goodness, mindfulness is like that." And then he says, the brother says, like we go into the sea, and then step by step, slowly, slowly. Oh, the sea is very deep. So, okay, now I am going to say some things about his life, but within that, I will also quote from mostly from one book that he published called Zen Keys, and it was one of the first books that he published that came out in the West. And even in this book, I believe you can see his realization and how it connects to Dzogchen. And then I will also quote from a book called The Art of Living. That's the book that collected his talks from 2014 um, in a retreat, a 21-day retreat that he gave shortly before he had the stroke. And after the stroke, he didn't speak anymore, although he was very alert and present to everyone. So anyway, I'll quote from those books as they relate to our Dzogchen practice. But here's a little bit about his life. He was born in central Vietnam in 1926 and was raised in a Buddhist family. He had brothers, one of whom wanted to be a monk, and one of that brother gave him a Buddhist magazine once, and he said he was about 9 years old. He said on the cover of that magazine, he saw a drawing of the Buddha. The Buddha was sitting on the grass and he looked very peaceful and aware. And this was like a contrast to what his life was like because in Vietnam there were many difficulties, and he was inspired to want to become like that Buddha. He said, this Buddha has calm and ease, and I want to be like that, and I want to help other people to be like that. Um, when he was 16, he entered the community at Tu Hieu Temple, and I will apologize to anyone who speaks Vietnamese and also Chinese because there's some Chinese words in here and I will not say them right. But he was 16. He became a novice in Tu Hieu Temple in the city of Hue. And this temple practiced in the tradition of the Lam Te school, which is in Chinese the Linchi school, and in Japanese it's the Rinzai Zen school. And during their thank you, Yeshe. I sent him these pictures, and he's very kind to help showing them. So during his studies, he was trained in a school called the Chan Tai School of Zen, and it emphasizes the practice of what they call the sudden understanding, and the elements of this practice are shamatha, calming or stabilizing meditation, and Kuan, which is clear seeing or insight. And this training taught him to see that the ultimate reality is present right now at the very start of a person's practice. And it teaches two types of practice. One is sitting meditation, and the other is practicing mindfully in daily life. And at the temple, daily life was pretty simple, chopping wood, hauling water, taking care of the cows, working in the garden. And all of the training was to do all of these tasks with full awareness of each action. Um, so he practiced there kind of a peaceful life within the temple, but in the outside world, it was not so peaceful. There was a great Vietnamese famine that was related to World War II. That was in 1945, and he saw the suffering that attended that famine. And then in the early 1950s, he was actively engaged in a movement to renew Buddhism, to make it more accessible to the people. And Viet after the World War II effects, there was the war with the French, and then the American War, the war with the Americans, and the monastics in the temples were aware of that and were faced with the question of whether they should just limit themselves to staying in the temples and chanting and praying, or whether they should help those around them with all that was going on. And he chose the path of doing both. He to help people and to do so in mindfulness. And that was his desire throughout his life, was to be aware of suffering and to offer help from the awareness that he had. Um, in 1961 and 62, he was invited to travel to the States, and he taught and studied at Columbia and Princeton. And then he returned to Vietnam, and there he founded a group called the School of Youth and Social Service. It was a nonpartisan grassroots relief organization, and was working to help the people in the bombed out villages, based on nonviolence and compassionate action. And while he was there in Vietnam in 1966, he received what they call the lamp transmission, which authorizes a student to become a Dharma teacher. And a few months after that, he went back to the United States to call for peace and an end to the division and the fighting in Vietnam. And, but while he was there, both the North and the South Vietnamese governments exiled him, said he couldn't come back. And he was not allowed to come back for 39 years. He made some brief visits in 2005, 2007, 2008, and then finally, at the end of his life, he returned in 2018. He came back for several years before he died. Um, while he was in exile, at first, he said that he felt like a bee separated from its beehive in danger of drying up. But he knew that he hadn't come to the West just for himself, but for the Sangha, for the people in his country and the greater world who wanted peace and an end to the divisions. And Sangha building was very important to him during his entire life. He began it there in Vietnam and continued in the West. And he encouraged people that studied or heard his teachings to form sanghas to support their practice. And he would say the next Buddha, Maitreya Buddha, might not be an individual, it might be a Sangha. And with the Sangha that he collected around himself in the West when he was exiled, he began to share the practices of mindful breathing from the Anapanasati Sutra, Sati Sutra, and the practice of mindful walking. And these were things that had sustained him in Vietnam during all the fighting and the immense suffering. Um, so now I'm going to quote a little bit from this book, Zen Keys. It was published in English in 1974, and it was his first attempt to share the benefits of mindfulness, concentration, and insight with Westerners. Because in his teaching, he always says there's mindfulness, but mindfulness leads to concentration, to being able to stay with what our realization, and insight is what comes from that we see clearly. So he wanted to share that with Westerners. And in this book, Zen Keys, one thing that he wrote was, the first thing we have to do is to return to life, to wake up and be mindful of each thing we do. When the lamp of awareness is lit, our whole being lights up, and each passing thought and emotion is also lit up. We wash our hands, dress, perform everyday actions as before, but now we are aware of our actions, words, and thoughts. We realize insight by practicing mindfulness of our body, feelings, mind, and the objects of our mind, which are the world. In Zen, insight cannot be obtained just by the intellect. The Zen student must use his or her entire being as an instrument of realization. The intellect is only one part of our being, and a part that often pulls us away from living reality, which is the very substance of Zen. So, yeah, living in the West, he became aware of the mental suffering here where I am, caused by materialism, loneliness, anxiety, and isolation. And since he knew that the practices he had learned were able to help transform those kinds of suffering and lead to deep insights, he shared those practices in the books that he wrote. There are more than 100 books. Many of them are transcriptions of Dharma talks that he that he gave during retreats, and he offered retreats at monasteries that he formed and practice centers, and also he traveled worldwide. And whenever he traveled, he would always bring the sangha with him. He would bring many members of the monastic community and lay people with him, because again he felt that the sangha is a way that the Buddha nature manifests in the world, not just through him. So he envisioned the practice centers that he founded as including not only monks and nuns, but also lay practitioners who would come to retreats or who would choose to stay and contribute to the mission of the community, to create an atmosphere of mindfulness and refuge, a place where people could renew themselves. And so first was a center in France, in a place called Plum Village in the south of France. Then one in California, that's where Dawei visited. One in New York, another one in Paris, Hong Kong, Thailand, Mississippi, Germany. That's the all right. I just lost the name. Sorry, but it's European Institute of Applied Buddhism, and also there is a sangha of a monastic sangha in Australia. They also founded a monastery that attracted many young Vietnamese in Vietnam, and that continued for several years, but then it felt like a threat to the government, and they closed it down because of that. Um, so Thich Nhat Hanh was invited to speak at many international gatherings, and he addressed world leaders on peace and understanding, and compassion, fueled by mindful awareness of the interconnection of all beings. Um, on the 11th of November 2014, this was a month after his 88th birthday, he suffered a severe stroke. And after that, he was unable to speak, and he was mostly paralyzed on the right side. But he continued to be very present to the members of his community, and the people who came to visit him. He was able to communicate. Just people, the his people around him, they would ask him questions, and he would just answer, nodding or shaking his head, and they were able to understand what he wanted. And eventually, from France, where he had the stroke, he came actually to the States for a while to have treatment for the injury from the stroke. And then eventually he made it known that he wanted to return to Vietnam, to the temple where he had been a novice, to return to the roots of his realization and his awareness. Um, um, he he finally passed away in 2022, um, and he was 95 at that time. What was very amazing, okay, this picture, I will tell you, this is the brother who is in the middle at that picture holding the lamp. That's the brother who said mindfulness is like the sea, it's very deep. The picture behind him is a picture of Thich Nhat Hanh when he was offering the Dharma lamp, the teaching authorization to some people before. And in front of this picture are some of the newer members of the community who are now carrying on the tradition. Um, when he died, it was very touching and amazing that the government of Vietnam, who had allowed him to come back, um, allowed the community to have a week of ceremonies honoring him, even though they had exiled him, and felt worried by the popularity that he had in the country. But they allowed a week of ceremonies, and many people from all over the country, and many of what we call the venerables, the Vietnamese Buddhist elder teachers, came from all over the country, and international people also came for these ceremonies. Um, and I wanted to also say this is like his lineage, and this description of his lineage was offered by the venerables of the Vietnamese Buddhist community. He belongs to the 42nd generation of the Lam Te Dhyana school, Linchi school, the 8th generation of the Yur Dharma line, He was named the patriarch and abbot of the Tukyu lineage of his temple, the founder of the International Plum Village Dharma School, and he has the Dharma title of Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh, an awakened master. And when I heard that, I was very, I was happy because they recognized what I think is clear to me anyway. The end. Um, Dawei said, "This is a Buddha." It feels like this is a person who was awake and wanted to share that. Okay, I I think I still have time. I'm going to read some of these quotes from The Art of Living. This is the book, like I said, from a 21-day retreat that he offered shortly before he had the stroke. And these also are things that to me speak very strongly of our practice of Dzogchen. Okay, the first one is just sitting down and doing nothing is an art. It's the art of non doing. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to struggle with yourself in order to sit. You don't have to make an effort to be peaceful. Paying attention to the breathing going on is like the sun shining on a flower. The sunshine doesn't try to impose itself on the flower or try to alter the flower in any way. The warmth and energy of the sun penetrates the flower naturally. You can just sit there and enjoy breathing in and breathing out. In another place, he says, just as a wave doesn't need to go looking for water, we don't need to go looking for the ultimate. The wave is the water. You already are what you want to become. You are made of the sun, moon, and stars. You have everything inside you. In Christianity, there is the phrase resting in God. When we let go of all seeking and striving, it is as if we are resting in God. We establish ourselves firmly in the present moment. We dwell in the ultimate. We rest in our cosmic body. God, nirvana, the ultimate, is inherent in every one of us. The kingdom of God is available in every moment. The question is whether we are available to it. With mindfulness, concentration, and insight, touching nirvana, touching our cosmic body or the kingdom of God becomes possible with every breath and every step. The deepest level of our consciousness, what we call store consciousness, has the capacity to directly touch the ultimate, the realm of reality itself. Our mind consciousness may not be able to do that right now, but our store consciousness is touching the true nature of the cosmos in this very moment. It's as though you stop being a block of ice floating on the ocean and you become the water. With our mindful breathing and deep awareness of our body, we are able to leave the zone of cogitating, discriminating, and analyzing and enter the realm of interbeing. You cannot remove the ultimate from yourself. Nirvana is there within you. If we want to touch the ultimate, we have to look within our own body and not outside. Contemplating deeply the body from within, we can touch reality itself. Okay, so thank you for listening. I am very bad at reading comments because my eyesight is not that good. But if you have any questions that you think I can answer, please ask and I'll try. Thank you.
So I'll read the comments if they come up there. Dugo saying thank you very much. And, Ty saying so beautiful. My goodness, yeah, I agree. Tashi showing love and Junji, that was beautiful. Makye showing love and Densha saying thank you. Awesome. Choko saying thank you. Yeah. Wow. I guess you probably know you kind of blew us away on that one and had a serious heart connection. Thich Nhat Hanh is here with us, right? Thanks to you. So I'm a little speechless. David also showing love there. Um, I'm speechless.